flags say, life might not be the party we hoped for, but while we're here, we should still dance. Like, that just feels fitting for today to share with y'all. And don't be afraid to fail, be afraid not to try, which is very much Aries energy, is very entrepreneurial energy. So hi, if you're just joining, I'm going to go through each one of the houses. I pulled a card. You can see the cards in my story later that I pulled for each of the houses. But first, let's talk about what's happening and just some basics about Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, growth, opportunity. Let me see my other keywords that I have here. Fortune, expansion, growth. I think I said that. So when we look at the Jupiter cycle, how long it takes to come all the way back around, it is about 13 years. And if you know this, if you've raised children before, you know they go through a massive growth spurt around 12 to 13 years. And this is their Jupiter return. A lot of things shift. They kind of launch into puberty. And so we can look at our own Jupiter returns as times for not necessarily literal growth, although it can be. We can put on weight or become pregnant. Pregnancy is a very Jupiterian, time period. And, we think about Santa Claus as kind of like the archetypal representation of Jupiter. And so this can be physical. Of course, we want it to be more about the kind of expansion that is not necessarily seen in the physical, but is felt, is this exciting potential and growth and opportunity within our minds, within our mindset, within our bank accounts, within our families, these blessings, this abundance. So when you think about Jupiter, Jupiter is very much about what you perceive as being abundance. Some people see abundance in different ways. So looking at your own natal placement of Jupiter is going to give you lots of information about how you attract expansion and growth into your life, what kinds of luck and fortune are kind of part of your makeup that you can lean into. And so this is why getting a personalized chart reading with me is so helpful. And right now I'm doing a very special offer because I'm doing a new type of reading. It's a type of reading. It's a French lady's name, Lenormand type of reading. And I've had this type of reading twice now, and I've just decided I want to start playing and practicing with this type of reading. So when you get an astrological deep dive 2-hour session with me, which includes the embodiment work around your astrology and how to manifest and use your chart to grow and attract and start really practicing with the energies that you came here to practice with. You're also going to get a separate hour-long session with me to get your full spread reading. And these readings are powerful. Literally, before my partner and I met, he showed up in the reading, and it was super powerful to see where he was at and what was going on. And I just loved it. So I'm definitely going to offer those. So if you get a chart reading with me in May, a crow just flew by. That was powerful. If you get a chart reading with me in May, I'll also include a separate 1-hour session with me. So that's a little bonus if you want to get that action. And okay, so when we're talking about Jupiter, growth, expansion, good luck, fortune, all of these things, you're going to want to understand your natal Jupiter and how the transiting Jupiter, now going from Pisces into Aries, where it shows up in your chart, what other things it's aspecting, and what connection it makes to your natal Jupiter. For example, my natal Jupiter, so if you were born around 1981, my natal Jupiter is in Libra. So this is going to be a Jupiter opposition, it can be a challenge to the growth and opportunity and expansion. So looking at where your own natal Jupiter is in terms of where this Jupiter is transiting is going to be really helpful. This is why having a full chart reading is really nice to have. And maybe you already know your own chart. So Of course, I'm going to go through each one of the houses, but knowing your chart is going to be even more beneficial to get all of this integrated. Okay, so I talked about what Jupiter is about. It's a 13 year cycle, and it stays in a sign now for this time period. We're going to have it kind of dip into Aries, retrograde back out, and then come on full force in December. So you might be watching this a little later date because I'll have it up on my YouTube. And in which case, just ignore all that. And once we get to December 20th, 2022, Jupiter will stay in Aries until May 16th. But it's important right now to know that we're going to be moving from this Jupiter and Pisces energy into the Jupiter and Aries energy, and they are very different energies. So the way that kind of I was being shown how to talk about this is Jupiter and Pisces energy is like the pearl in the shell, but it's at the bottom of the ocean. So in some area, especially our subconscious, we've had this expansion. It's been a very healing time. Jupiter has cruised through Pisces, and we're going to get another dip into this in very late October, so Halloween time, into November, all of November. So we're going to kind of like revisit. It's been a very internal time. It's been a very healing time. It's been a very uncomfortable healing time for a lot of people. A lot of forgiveness work, a lot of repressed anger has been coming up, a lot of deep work that is not easy to do has been coming up for a lot of people. And it is all for the collective growth together, that this expansion, though it looks like it doesn't make much sense, or these healing, while it maybe feels uncomfortable, whatever you have been doing personally in your personal life these last few months, so basically since December, whatever you've been doing, it's for the collective and of course for yourself too. So hi, if you're just joining, we're talking about Jupiter moving into Aries. This is a very obviously fire time. And so if you have fire in your chart, you're going to be like thanking your lucky stars, because this is going to feel more familiar than where we've been for the last really few years, because before Jupiter was in Pisces, it was in Aquarius. We haven't had, and then it was in Capricorn. So we haven't had it in a fire sign in a long time. And this is going to be very exciting energy, very creative and ideas firing off kind of time period. And I'm going to give you some that's exciting, that's wonderful. And I'm going to give you a little bit of caution, because when I was doing this for all of the 12 signs, there was a lot of don't get too caught up in yourself. And don't overexpand and just being all about me energy, right? So there's a lot of things coming up around that. But like I said, going from this Jupiter and Pisces time where it's like this pearl in a shell at the bottom of the ocean, what Aries now feels like is getting that pearl out and being able to utilize it, being able to move it somewhere and use it and kind of maybe even wear it. It's this, all of this deeper inner work, this deeper below the surface subconscious work, spiritual work that you've been doing. Now you get to wear it. Now you get to, I'm doing crown codes, and I'm talking about how these initiations, they become the jewels on your crown. So I guess it kind of fits with that, although I didn't intend it to. I was just being shown, the guides were showing me Jupiter and Pisces energy is like the shell with the pearl, but it's at the bottom of the ocean. And then during Aries season, we bring it out and we can kind of wear it and use it, okay? Maybe get some cash money for it, this is the exciting time. So if you haven't felt excited in a while, or you've been feeling where's that flare? Where's that thing? May 10th, here it comes, baby. Okay, so we're looking at Jupiter and Aries time period as from May 10th to October 28th. However, it will be retrograde starting July 28th. So we're really getting these 2 months, so mid-May to mid-July, to really step into this, like shine brighter, bitches shine brighter. Like just do it, do the thing, no more hesitation, no more questioning yourself, do the thing. And then we get to like relax with the thing a little bit. And then it fully moves back into Pisces in October. And then we restart the engine. And we're going to be taking off December 20th to May 16th. Okay. So this is a really important time period to focus on you. Focus on, if you are an entrepreneur, this is the time to like take the lead, take the steps that you know you've been hesitating on, that you know you've been scared of. This is the most courageous sign is Aries. A lot of the fire signs, right? All the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sag are known for kind of being courageous, being bold. But it's Aries that just acts, and sometimes acts without thinking, in the ways that are important. So warriorship, claiming the ways forward, being a leader, really having that confidence, focusing on self and self-development. Like these things are all the things that are Aries. Aries, I always say, is like, it's that energy of when a baby is being born and they just like push into the world. It's like literally like that guiding force, that push. It's like if you've spent time with Aries, they will push you. And sometimes in a good way and sometimes not in a good way. But this Aries energy is very like pushing forward. And it also has to do with our aura. It's like, Aries is like the first house. It's your aura. It's like how you present to the world. And so with that being said, when Jupiter is expanding on that for everyone, no matter where this is in your chart, there is going to be this focus on self-development. And there was a lot of like, just be cautious. Yes, go, self-develop, push forward, self-actualize, put yourself out there, be the star that you are. And at the same time, don't forget, and that's why Pisces is going to dip back in, or Jupiter's going to dip back into Pisces. Don't forget about the collective. Don't forget that everybody's a star. Don't forget that everyone has this potential. It's how we take that energy that is, it's for the collective. What we do for ourselves helps the collective, and kind of reversing that, and that anything that helps the collective is going to help ourselves. And so it's very important to have that like working both ways, right? And not just be all about me. And it's not that we think we want to be that way. It's just that even the nature of like depression, it's a very self-focused illness. And when the more that we have community, the more that we're around others, and I see this all the time in women's circles, when we circle together, when we can see that everyone is struggling with something or everyone has a challenge in some way, we start to realize that and not feel so bad, like, why me? And that energy can be a little bit with both Pisces and Aries, honestly. So it's just important to understand that we all have challenges. We all have a mission here. We all can self-actualize, but we all have a different way of bringing that forward and what that looks like. And we need to also balance our self-development with the understanding of where can I support someone else? If I'm claiming that I live a certain way, but I'm not kind of really doing that or really supporting the community, how can I shift and make that a part of my life? So this is all kind of what I see is coming up with this time period. So whereas Pisces is all about everyone, the collective, and sometimes can lose a little bit of like, well, what's the point? Like there's so many of us and like, what's the point? Aries is all about me. It's all about like, what am I doing? What am I going to show to the world? Where am I going to initiate? And we came here to have an ego. We didn't come here to kill our ego. We came here because we had certain work to do that our ego is a part of helping us to accomplish. It's just that our ego shouldn't be the only one driving the car at all times, right? When we're soul driven, when we know we have a soul purpose and we're utilizing our ego to ground that soul purpose into the 3D, that's really where the magic is at. And that's kind of the place where we find ourselves, where Jupiter is moving towards those last degrees of Pisces, dissolving all of the like things where, you know, those last degrees of Pisces are intense. It's the last part of the zodiac. And so it's kind of, in a way, it is like a death. In a way, it's a surrender. It's a dissolving of what we thought we had to hold on to, what we thought we had to be, and really bringing in this new, fresh rebirth energy. So I'm very excited about this time period. I'm very excited to see what you notice, what comes in for you. And of course, like I said, I'm doing this special in May. So if you want to get a chart reading with me and get that extra bonus session with me, you can message me, or I'll put the link in my profile. But let's go through the houses. So we're going from the first house to the 12th house in astrology. If you don't know where Aries is in your chart, you can go to my website, and at the bottom of my website, you can pull your chart and find Aries in your chart. If you have planets in Aries, this is going to be an extra profound time for you. Jupiter's literally going to be like expanding those planets, expanding those things in your chart and wherever they are in your chart. Same as if you have any fire. So if you have a lot of Leo, if you have a lot of Sagittarius, expansion time, whoop, whoop. You know, and then we have to look at like the oppositions and the squares, which are more challenges. So I mentioned that I have Jupiter in Libra. And so that's an opposition. So it's a challenge. You know, it's like definitely having to work some things through. And so looking at these things can give you such good information about where you're being asked to grow, where like a spotlight is being placed on your chart and telling you it's go time, and all of these things. So that's why a full chart reading is going to really serve you in that way, or just looking at your own chart if you are proficient enough to do that. Okay, we're going to move into the houses. So the first house, if you have Jupiter transiting the first house, so Aries is in your first house, we're looking at like deep cellular change. The change that you experienced in Pisces time was like, it's such a deep level that it's really a cellular change that you will notice more vitality, more zest, and then this like newer zing to you based on the cellular change that has happened for you. Now, this can feel like too much at times, or people might respond to you in a too much kind of way. Of course, that's their issue. But if you are feeling like you're leaning too heavy into these big, massive changes for yourself, this is definitely the placement to balance that out with either partnership. So doing something to help your partner, working with a business partner, or just in general friendships. What if you feel like these changes are so massive for you and you have all this energy, balancing out what you're giving to self and like kind of putting out there versus interacting with others and making sure that you're sharing some of the bounty, it will make you feel better about how massive this change is and is going to be for you in the next year. This is the cosmic whirlwind card that I pulled for this. And it really is about that giving and receiving and making sure that you feel good in those areas, because there are these big decisions that are going to need to be made, and you're going to have to initiate in new ways. And the way that you can kind of support that is by also supporting others, because it can feel, when we're making these big, massive changes, it can feel isolating. It can feel lonely. And this is especially true if there are changes to your relationship status or your friendship status or our business partnership. So making sure that you're interacting with others will help you kind of check that. Okay, second house. Second house is the house of our personal resources. Not just our money, although our money is there, but money, as many of you know, is an energy. And so the second house has to do with our personal energy, how we think about ourselves, what our values are, what we really prioritize, what we think of our worth, how we're claiming our kind of boundaries and standards. And this is very much a time to really look at past fears. Since Aries time is such a time of courage and courageousness, we have to really get courageous about where we've kind of made ourselves second fiddle in certain ways in our life, and really be honest with ourselves and look at our beliefs and what has shaped our beliefs, how our interaction with, because we're looking at the opposite to this house is the 8th house where you have Libra. And so this is really about like where your parents or your caregivers or the people that raised you kind of implanted certain things about your beliefs, about your worthiness and your trust of self. And it's a time to heal that. And this is especially true if you have Chiron in either the 2nd or the 8th house in Aries or Libra. Okay, and then we're looking at 3rd house. 3rd house, we have Jupiter moving through your 3rd house. And this is a challenge time. This is a time to really look at your relationship if you have siblings or just your close community, close personal interactions, your close work surroundings, and your neighborhood. So it can have to do with your neighbors. And one of the main messages with the card that I pulled here was about being strategic and not playing yourself. And so I think that's really interesting, looking at the way that you're communicating. With Aries in the 3rd house, you can have a lot of fire, a lot of passion. And if that's not balanced, if that's not grounded, it can come across as aggressiveness or anger. And it's really important to kind of build your ability to ground yourself and to know when to respond and know when to wait. This is a great placement for Bitches Shine Brighter. And that's a course that I teach. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Because you might be reactive, and this might be especially true around this time as you're growing and like stepping into this new role. One of the things the card said, which I thought was really cool, and I love this, was remember, without opposition, we would not be able to play the game. And so if you are dealing with challenges or confrontation or some type of opposition in the exterior world, remember that that challenge is showing you where within yourself you're being asked to expand and rise above and step up. So it's kind of like a play on energy. It's showing you your own opposition to yourself. It's showing you your own beliefs about yourself. So this is a time to really, yes, you are a passionate person, but be aware of your communication and making sure it's not too aggressive or too fiery. Okay, if you have Jupiter moving through your 4th house, this is a time of home expansion. It can be a time, I've had so many times where I've read a chart with Jupiter moving through the 4th house where they're literally remodeling their home. Or less like literal is something's happening with the body, upgrades with your physical body. So you're having some like healing or some type of situation where you're supporting your physical growth in a way that's like a regimen or a new diet or a new thing that you're doing that feels good to you. So this time period, if you have Jupiter moving through your 4th house, is about a gestation period. There's a certain amount of silence that is needed, a certain amount of like time for things to flourish and incubate. And with this placement, it's really important to understand, hi if you're just joining. Okay, it's really good to look at and understand where you're being asked to grow in a way that's going to require you to kind of hold your own. So this Aries energy is very much about holding your own, leading the way, and being courageous. And so in the 4th house, it can be with making an offer on a house. It can be with moving. It can be with remodeling or not really knowing if you can actually make something happen, but still moving forward on it and kind of like acting on faith. Because this is such a time period of expansion within the home. And like I said, it doesn't always mean literally. It can mean your body. It can mean going back to your place of origin, your home, the land you came from, the land from which you came, and really kind of expanding from that experience. So it doesn't mean literal growth with a home growing, but it can. And it can also be incubation, literally, like a gestation, like a pregnancy. So watch that, you know what I'm saying, if you don't want that. Okay, but if you want that, it's a great time for that. You know what I'm saying? So, oh man, my tea is very Jupiter-like. It's somehow like leaking out of the cup, which is funny because I was reading the tea inscriptions earlier, and there's like, it's just like seeping out of the mug. I don't know what's happening there. Okay, so we are now on to the 5th house. If you have Jupiter and Aries moving through your 5th house, now remember, here's the thing to remember. You might have Jupiter moving through your 4th and 5th house with Aries energy. And you might have Pisces in the 5th house for part of the time, and then it moves into Aries. You will notice a difference. It's different energy, because we talked about Pisces being very like under the covers, under the surface, and Aries energy is big and fiery and exciting. And so kaboomy, it's like combustible, you know, which in the social scheme in the world, we will probably see things kind of blowing up, so to speak. There's a lot of things that we're just trying to like ignore that they're a problem. So we might see some things blowing up literally. Sorry about that, but it's just reality. Okay, but yeah, this is also an exciting and passionate time. So we're very excited to see what this Aries energy is going to feel like in our chart. So if you have this Aries energy in your 5th chart, this is obviously a very creative time. Same thing as the 4th house. It can also be a time where there's a focus on babies and children in your life, or you're a teacher, or you're, you know, working with that form of like play, like you know, you're taking on new things that feel playful. So a new leisure activity or a new sport. I mean, 5th house Aries is very much of like, if you're not playing a sport, you're probably missing out, because you probably really have fun with it. So this is a very much like a sportsy placement. And again, another place we have to watch out, because the 5th house is also the house of affairs, the house of passionate rendezvous. It's Leo's house. So it can be that passionate energy. It can be that big energy, that song now, it can be that big energy. And you just got to be cautious that you don't get caught up in the passion. This is a real thing. This is a real thing, especially if you have a lot of fire, is you can get caught up in the passion and then like 5 months later be like so embarrassed, so like, I can't believe I thought that person was this or that or the other thing. And so getting caught up in the passion is a real thing. It's okay. Just this is the time to be cautious of not getting caught up in the passion. Just be aware of it, right? We can learn and grow from past mistakes and past experiences. So this can also be vices coming up, too much party, too much drinking, too much activity. And if you do get into too much, there is a stinger energy with this placement from the card that I got. So just being conscious, being aware, using your creative energy and your fiery energy for something amazing and wonderful and fun, but not going too fun, too fast. So focusing on inner work, focusing on self-development is where you're going to see, like, is this activity bettering me? Is this affair bettering me? If the answer is no, you definitely want to pull back your energy, your big energy. Okay, moving into the 6th house, this is the house of day-to-day, our work, our routines, our self-care. And so with the focus on self-development, this is very much going to be a time about your personal health. This is going to be a time of healing yourself, of cleansing, of remembering that if you feel like you're having to focus on these things a lot, remembering that what you do for yourself, it ripples out to the people around you, your family, your surroundings. So really being okay, taking the time you need to focus your fire and your passion on yourself and your day-to-day work and routines. Maybe it's a new ritual, maybe it's a new self-care routine, and knowing that that's going to help everyone around you. This can also be around work situations. And this has the same kind of theme, is to balance what you need also with what people need around you. Making sure that you're not giving too much and then being resentful. Making sure that you're not taking too much and then other people resenting you. So, and that's that for the 6th house. So those are the things to be aware of. And then we have 7th house. So if you have Jupiter transiting through your 7th house of partnership, this is a time of regeneration, re-energizing, building passion again. If things aren't working, it could be a time of breaking up to break through. This is about being bold in what you need and being able to recreate things that were not working. So if you have Aries in the 7th house, you have Jupiter moving through your 7th house, this is definitely a time of making sure that you're releasing any pent-up energy and especially anger, and making sure that if you are with someone who has, because it can also be representative of our partner that has a lot of anger or energy in that way, that you're taking care of yourself. You're not becoming kind of the punching bag, so to speak, energetically with someone else's anger. So this is very much a time to bring in the element of water. And it can even be if you have a partner that's very fiery or you're very fiery, between the two of you, just imagining a nice cool pool of water, and it's clear and it's crisp and it's clean, and just using that visualization, regardless of if you're recreating the relationship, you're breaking up, or you're just kind of hoping to work through some things together, that imagery can be really helpful for this time period because it is extra fiery. Okay, and then if you have Jupiter moving through your 8th house in your chart, this is very much about that feminine magic, that mysteries. You know, I talked about this time period of going from Jupiter and Pisces as it being like the pearl at the bottom of the ocean, to this Jupiter and Aries energy feeling like you get the pearl out and you get to wear the pearl, you get to show the pearl, or you get to get some money for the pearl. And this is very much the case with the 8th house, where there is just this magic of this time period for you, and making sure that you're open to receiving money, cash money flows. This is joint resources. This is the house of, you know, it could be more tax money or secret money that you didn't even know was yours coming your way. Can also be inheritances, which is really exciting if you ever get to experience that in your lifetime. Hopefully someday I'll know what that looks like. It'd be so fun. So let's see. Yeah, looking at following the cycles of the moon, especially during this time period for you, especially the fire moons are going to be extra fruitful, the fire full moons. So really utilizing those as a time to harvest, to be in the energy, to do your ritual things, and utilize the element of fire, specifically with this 8th house placement, is going to help you just bring it in. Okay, 9th house. Let me just say this. If you have Jupiter moving through your 9th house, this is just a great place to have Jupiter. So anytime Jupiter moves through your 9th house, I would mark it on the calendar because it's a very special time. Hi, if you're just joining. It's a very special time. It's Jupiter's natural placement. It can really mean world travel, business abroad, expansion in your business, expansion, especially if you're some type of teacher, mentor, that kind of thing. Or if you're a student, it could just mean opportunities, just growth opportunities. It is just the most beneficial place to have Jupiter moving through. And this is also true, and especially true if you have Jupiter in your 9th house natally of your chart, okay? So the symbology with the card that I pulled for this time period is really interesting because it's just Jupiterian in general, which is, instead of this with life, stating how it is, it's too hard, things don't work out for me, that's the closed fist. This relationship's never gonna work, you just keep doing this thing. We need to open it up. And one of the things about Jupiter in Aries is it's about opening up and reaching. Okay? And maybe don't grasp so hard. That became very sexual. But, you know, keep a little bit open, like that big energy needs to fit in there, right? And then the person that was on just left. Okay, cool. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is big. I'm like getting flushed. This is very fiery energy. Okay, so Jupiter in Aries in general is about like having the hand open and reaching forward, not closing it down all the way, okay? So you want to be open to how this comes in for you, but you also want to be reaching towards something. And this is especially true if you have Jupiter in the 9th house. What is your goal? What do you want to accomplish during this time? Really being clear, having a crisp, clear vision can really help. Okay, that was enough for the 9th house. Moving on to the 10th house. This is about trusting your inner guidance, trusting that you are a leader. If you have this placement, you are a leader, but people might see you as too bold, too big, trying to be like the leader always, right? And so it does need to be balanced. The same thing I've said with others, with that giving and receiving. It needs to be balanced with those things, and cooperation, of course. This time period in particular with Jupiter and Aries is about you really looking for the sweetness in your work life, looking for the ways in which the work that you're doing is serving the collective, the ways in which you being a leader benefits all, and being honest with yourself about times where you could actually learn from others and you could actually follow others and gain a lot as well. So it's that whole idea of I don't know if you've ever heard this analogy about the wolf pack. It's like the leaders, yes, there's one in the front, I think. Now that I'm saying it, I'm like, is this true? There's one in the front and then there's one in the back. And then the elders walk in the middle. And so it's like there's something beneficial about being at the end where you can see everything in front of you and have everyone's back. So there's definitely times where, yes, it's important to be in front and center, and then it's also just as important or almost more important to have everyone's back. So for whatever reason, the card that I pulled was very much about making sure you're caring for the whole, and then also it had this element of sound healing. Utilizing sound healing either for yourself or for others at this time is going to be really beneficial for you to like kind of start hearing things that you didn't hear before, if that makes sense. Now, if you have Jupiter moving through your 11th house, we are looking at overthinking, really pulling your energy back from overthinking. This is the house of the community, the future goals and vision. So in general, it can be an overthinking house in itself. It's ruled by Aquarius, which is very much about the head and thinking. But this is very important to remember to add in the element of creativity and play and having fun. Like, remember that, because this can be a time for you to kind of like plan and plot and scheme and like have ideas and bring them into reality. But you need to balance that out with play and, fun. And you're not always going to feel liked. Same as with the 10th house. You're not always going to feel liked, but to remember that everyone, however they feel about you, is none of your business, and that everyone feels that way. Everyone feels like they're not always liked. I haven't ever met a human who felt like they were loved by everyone. Although maybe that's not true, but that's not my experience, at least. Okay. So 12th house, if you have Jupiter moving through your 12th house, hello, if you're just popping on, I'm going through the houses. So looking at where Jupiter is going to be moving through this next phase, it's super exciting because Jupiter in Aries is very fiery, fun, courageous, and all about me energy. So wherever Jupiter is moving through your houses is going to show you where it's time to like move into that energy in a bigger way. So now that we're on to the 12th house, this is the house of Pisces. And so we were just talking about what Jupiter and Pisces has been doing for this last little bit where it's been cruising through Jupiter and Pisces. And we know that Pisces is about the subconscious. It's about the deeper than what's at surface level. And so there is this energy of when Jupiter moves into Aries, lighting this fire. And that brings a certain level of new consciousness to your 12th house. This is a time of releasing some old patterns, some old ways of thinking about how you have to be, especially when it comes to your relationship with the spirit realm or what you can and can't receive. Or maybe you are just naturally like a channel or someone who gets a lot of insight from the other side. And this can be a time of really trusting that more, getting more insight. This can also have to do with self-forgiveness and releasing old stories about where you need to hold on to not trusting others or not trusting love or not trusting your heart. about vulnerability, and really having a lot of self-forgiveness come up around past times. It can even be past lives. 12th house is the past life house. And so this is really about a time of choosing love. What do you want love to look like in your life? What do you want love to feel like in your life? And I can guarantee that all of us, if we did this and we decided what we want love to look like in our life, we can see where we're not acting in full alignment with that. Because we have an ego, because we are afraid, because we have a shadow, because we've been hurt before, because we've been betrayed before. And so this is about reorganizing our whole structure, and especially the subconscious brain, the subconscious mind, which is about like 94 at least % of our brain, 90 to 94. So this is a great, if you have this placement, this might be a great place to work with me, because you're really at this ability to see things and like see where you've been patterning in a way that isn't effective to you. So those are the 12 houses. I'm like, my throat is so ready for a rest. If you didn't catch this live, it will be up on my YouTube, and I will send it out to my newsletter people. So if you're not on my newsletter, get on there. If you go to my website, I think it's a pop-up that I have a free 3-part journey through healing the feminine. And if you get on that list, you'll get my newsletter, which is amazing. And you'll also get that 3-part healing journey. So if that interests you, it's definitely a great time to do that work. As I said, throughout May, if you get a chart reading with me, I'm going to throw in a bonus special tarot reading that I just started offering because it's been phenomenal in my own life. So I'm going to offer it. So you get a 2-hour astrological embodiment deep dive with me, like nothing you've ever experienced. You do, and you just popped on to hear that, because I only did the 12th house since you've been on. That's amazing. What is that synchronicity? Wow. So you have your Jupiter return happening. Okay, I didn't talk about Jupiter returns, but Jupiter returns are really significant. I did actually talk about them. I just didn't. So it's a time of expansion in the 12th house. I'm so excited to see what happens for you. And of course, if you're interested in working with me, I would love to work with you. Okay, so yeah, so the 2-hour session with me, which is your chart reading, but not only that, we dive into the energetics and that like deep past life work, ancestral work, embodiment work, so that you can take your chart and not just have it like resonate up here, but like have it here, which is like what it's all about. Like, I'm just like, it's like what lights me up more than anything. So that 2-hour session with me, life-changing deep dive work with me, is $888. And if you get that in May, if you sign up for that, which will probably be booked out through June, when you sign up for that, you get an hour-long, I can't pronunciate the woman's name, Lenormand's reading with me. So if you've never had one of those, I highly recommend it, like from anyone that knows what they're doing with those cards. But of course, I'm just starting to, I've been reading cards for since I was like 14, but I've never done this style of reading. So I'm really excited to do that. So as a bonus, I'm giving those readings away when you sign up in May for a chart reading. Okay, I'm blabbering. I love you all. If you don't already know about Crown Codes, my group program for entrepreneurs, which Jupiter and Aries is all about entrepreneurship as well, that starts this Thursday. So if you've been interested or kind of on the fence, know that this time period, especially depending on where this is happening for you, really highlights this Crown Codes energy that's coming through. So I'm super excited to share that with you. Reach out. You can message me with any questions you have. And of course, once you see this on my profile, I would love for you to comment and let me know where Jupiter is in your chart. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Don't know how to end it. Oh my gosh. It's not letting me end it. Do you know how weird Instagram has been lately?